this week's episode of Storytime. I'm reading a series of books about water and the importance of water and how wonderful water is. And for this week, I've chosen a story from The Garden of Wisdom, Earth Tales from the Middle East, edited by Michael J. Caduto and illustrated by Odelia Liphshiz. And this story is called The Tree of Life, and it's from Israel, and it's a Tu B'Shavat tale, which means Tu B'Shavat means the new year for trees. And it's like the new beginning of the trees when the sap starts rising in the trees and the trees come back to life after the winter. There's not many pictures in this story, so you'll have to make them in your mind, and that's some of the best. That's one of the best ways to listen to a story. So let's see what's going on here. The Tree of Life. There came a time when the rains failed and the soil was as dry as desert bones. Wells were empty and animals wandered far to find life-giving water. Crops withered. Food was scarce, and hunger's knobby fingers gripped the land. People went to Honi, the circle maker. They knew that he had a special way of praying. "Only you can bring the rain," they said. "Please do something before we all die." Honi nodded his head gravely. Then he wandered off into the desert, where he etched a circle in the sand. Stepping into the center, Honi started speaking to God, asking for rain to quench the thirst of the people, the plants, and the animals. For many days, Honi prayed. He sat in the prayer circle while the sun beat down on his head. At night, the stars kept him company beneath the cold dome of the desert dark. At last, a fine drizzle began to fall. "What is this?" cried Honi as he looked up toward the sky. Then he said to God, "Please send us some generous rain, enough rain to water this dusty land and slake the thirst of the people and the earth." Heavy rain began to fall with the sound of 1,000,000 tiny drums. At first it splashed up puffs of dust. Brown ribbons of water began to flow across the land, filling the wadis, the valleys, with streams of mud. Rivers overflowed their banks and flooded the villages. People climbed up to the temples on high ground. "Stop the rain," they called out to Honi. "We only wanted enough rain so we would be able to live, not so much that we would need to build an ark like Noah." Honi stepped back into the circle and raised his arms to heaven. The rain stopped falling. As the days went by, flowers bloomed in the desert and trees sprouted new shoots and leaves. The land turned green and rich with life. Everywhere he went, people turned to Honi and said, "Rav Tadot, thank you very much." As he often did after days of prayer, Honi began to wander. One day, at sunrise, he saw a young farmer planting a carob tree. "Boker tov," said Honi. "Boker tov," replied the farmer. "How long before you'll be able to pick fruit from the branches of that tree?" asked Honi. "This tree will not feed the likes of us," the farmer replied. "Its first fruit will be picked by the hands of my grandchildren, maybe some 50, 60, 70 years from now." "You are a patient man," said Honi. "Patience feeds the roots of the family tree," said the farmer. "I now eat the fruit from trees planted by my own grandfather when he was a young man." Honi continued along the path. He climbed a hilltop that looked out over a green valley rich with new growth that had sprouted after the rains. Seeking shade in the shadow of a large rock, Honi took pleasure in seeing what the rains had brought. Overcome at last by the long journey, Honi found that his head was beginning to droop, and soon his eyes closed. He fell into a long, deep sleep that was rich with dreams. A picture of him sleeping. Time passed. How much time? Nobody knew. Honi's eyelids fluttered open. He yawned and stretched. Oh, that was a wonderful rest, Honi thought to himself as he stood and looked around. Full of energy, Honi walked back down the path toward home. Something has changed. The world looks a lot different. In time, Honi again passed the farmer's land. He saw a different farmer picking carob pods from a magnificent old tree. Shalom, said Honi. Shalom, responded the farmer as he continued to pick the carob pods. This tree, asked Honi. I'm confused. Is my mind still caught in a dream? This tree seems to be growing in the same place where I saw a farmer planting a sapling, a small young tree, a short time ago. That's impossible, said the farmer. This tree was planted by my grandfather many years ago. Honi stumbled back on his heels in fear and wonder, barely catching himself with his staff. It was then that he realized he had slept for most of his life while the world had borne fruit around him. He understood that the purpose of life was to plant and prepare the way for future generations to flourish. That is a very interesting story. I guess we all have to be patient and do the things that we need to do today so that people that come after us can benefit from them. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time on Story Time. Until then, see you outside.